The year is 2009. The slate for animated movies from the past several years has mainly been taken up by the head of industry company, Pixar, with movies like Finding Nemo, Incredibles, and WALL-E reigning supreme. Critically and financially, it seemed like the animated genre of film would forever be stuck in this heartfelt neo-fairy tale style that Pixar had been sculpting for almost a decade. But then there was a little movie by the name of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And I know you're probably thinking one of two things. First, you might only vaguely remember this movie. Or second, something like, you just spent all this time talking about these Pixar greats and now you're bringing up this weird thing. And no, it's no Up or Finding Nemo, but that's exactly why I'm talking about it. It was a colorful, goofy, offbeat movie that was a nice breath of fresh air from Pixar's soppy, emotional roller coasters. It was the first of many films that would start taking animation in a new direction. It really shook things up a bit. And actually, I think this film is a perfect glimpse of what these young, first-time directors behind this film would bring to the world of cinema. It's these very directors that are the topic of today's video. Lord and Miller shake things up. Now, if you're just the average moviegoer, you may not have heard of these two filmmakers. Phil Lord and Chris Miller are two producer-directors who do most of their work together. Their directorial work is small but memorable, with films like The Lego Movie, 21 and 22 Jump Street, and the previously mentioned Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They have a lot more work as producers and some as writers too, but for the purpose of today's video, I'd mainly like to focus on the films they've directed. So back to Meatballs. Like I said earlier, this film was a perfect example of the type of filmmakers Lord and Miller have become. They are arguably some of the most inventive and creative people working in the film industry today. Though I don't think this movie is the best way to show Lord and Miller at their best. And for that, look no further, because that brings us to their third movie, The Lego Movie. There are a lot of special things about The Lego Movie. As you probably know, it was a huge hit right on release. It is the very epitome of brand content, which is content or media funded or outright produced by an advertiser. In this case, the advertiser is obviously Lego. But the reason I'm talking about any of this isn't to give you a lesson in commercial advertising or something. No, I'm talking about this to show you what type of film this was doomed to be, which is one big commercial. There's not typically much care put into these types of film. To see what I mean, we can take a look at last year's Ugly Dolls. That film did okay at the box office. A bit of people probably went to see it, and it probably boosted Ugly Dolls sales for a sec, and that's it. That's all these films always do. Well, not always. The Lego Movie was far from just that. It did hugely boost sales for Lego, but Lord and Miller managed to do the impossible and craft a heartfelt story around a highly commercialized task. They turned, hey, make a fun kids movie with Lego people into something revolutionary. They led their skilled crew to create new technology and techniques to craft a wholly unique, ultra-realistic, faux stop-motion style of animation. It challenged the whole industry to think bigger when going about creating an animated film. But that wasn't the only area they put care into. They also made this a heartfelt, effective story about what it means to be special and break social norms. You can't watch a single scene of the Lego Movie without seeing that this was not just a corporate cash grab, and the people behind this film cared. And yeah, most filmmakers care about their films, I'm sure, but that's not the only thing that makes Lord and Miller special. They also have a great understanding over the craft of filmmaking. This can be seen in things like meta-humor. Although meta-humor probably happens too often in movies today, Lord and Miller are the masters of it. Before I show you some of these jokes, I want to define meta-humor. It's basically when a writer decides to have the characters ironically poke fun at the fact that they're in a movie. On paper, it sounds bad, like it ruined the point of a movie. And yeah, sometimes it does. A lot of the time, like any other type of comedy, it lands wrong or has a weird delivery and just isn't funny. But Lord and Miller's take on meta-humor definitely falls on the completely other end of the spectrum. Analysis sometimes takes away from comedy, so let's take a look at this quick line from 21 Jump Street.
Fortunately for you two, we're reviving a canceled undercover police program from the 80s and revamping it for modern times. You see, the guys in charge of this stuff lack creativity and are completely out of ideas. So all they do now is recycle shit from the past and expect us all not to notice.
This line is pretty brilliant. When doing metacomedy, there's a fine line you have to walk when making jokes specifically about self-parody. On one end, a writer might find himself needing to use a cliche or trope and then thinks, oh, I'll just make a meta joke about this and everything will be fine. In that case, it comes across as an excuse and it shows. On the other end, you have this, a perfect little jab at the creators themselves that says, hey, we know we are just doing another reboot film, we don't have good ideas, we suck. And it works so well because it creates an open little connection between us and the filmmakers. And I think this shows pretty well how much control and understanding Lord and Miller have over filmmaking. Metahumor is, excuse the weird term, but it's a pretty ballsy move. It can really ruin a movie, and it takes a lot of understanding of how things affect the audience and film in general. The last thing I wanted to point out about what makes these filmmakers special is their personality in film, mainly as producers. They have a very selective type of movies, generally playful comedy stuff. I often find myself looking at the credits and seeing them as producers and saying, oh, I could see that. It may be small, but I definitely see their impact on the movies they work on, even if it's just as producers or writers. One film I saw this in the most was Into the Spider-Verse. This movie shared a lot in common with the Lego Movie with its insanely unique animation style and attention to detail. Although this film had an amazing crew and Lord and Miller were only producers, I don't think I'd be reaching very far to say that a lot of those things, or at least a good chunk of them, may have came from them. Overall, Lord and Miller are definitely some of the most inventive people in the film industry working today, and I can't wait to see more of their work as directors. Thanks for watching. That's all for this video. Thank you for those who made it this far. Hopefully I got my points across effectively and maybe learned something. Like I said in my last video, this channel is mainly to teach myself about the films I love by teaching others. Thanks for watching.